Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this, my second channel, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after-show goodness. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. Now, while I set up for the first live show that goes out shortly on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, I'm going to pass over to Anthony and Jose. I almost called him Antozo. See if I can get their attention. Hello.
Doing in the flatter debate show, I don't know if I have anything to offer. So like for real, what am I even doing here? I'm not a debater. I don't have strong arguments, but I just love being here for real.
I have my sound turned off for a second. You hear me?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Jose,
Yeah.
are you considering your position in Flat Earth?
No, it's not that. I never saw myself being a part of a debate show like this. Like this is advanced science. I'm actually learning all this stuff that I have learned is through this show on the other servers and this flat earth debate. I don't know if I have anything to offer, like for real, just comments and questions,
That doesn't mean that you're not a scientist, man.
Yeah, but I feel myself, right now looking back, I say, yeah, I could have been part of the show even earlier. I just always hesitated to click on the link until you came up with the idea, like we need placeholders, we need friendlies from the chat, and that's when I start joining, and I felt comfortable, and I like it, I really do, because I wanna get to the bottom of this shit.
Check it out, I didn't know that. So because Anthony was like, we need friendlies, that got you on the show where you may not have joined. And now you're debunking soundly. That's just absolutely...
Exactly, I know, it's mind-blowing.
That is mind-blowing. You've got Jaren's camera, and you're debunking soundly, and you're like, I don't know if I should join to debate people. Maybe not my bag. Right.
For real, I know, I see my own little story. If I didn't come here, like, damn, that's crazy, And I still don't find myself, as a strong player, but I know I can create content, and I know I have a voice, and I'm very unique and different because I am able to jump in all these different panels and the bowlers channels and shit, and I'm just behave. That's why they call me. Oh, you flip flop. You in the Nathan Oakley just burning people and asking them questions, and then you come over here all peaceful and asking questions to us. I say like, so I'm unique. I'm just me.
All right, what's wrong with that? So you chatting here and then chatting there obviously isn't allowed. It seemed like a Hindu going into a Muslim church or something.
Yeah, I got blasted after the LMB ordeal a few days ago. I went to the Gem Panda server, and they start going and going and calling me out. And Soundly was there, and I was actually chatting with Soundly in the beginning a little bit, and then they all start coming like, "Oh, you Two Faces." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like I heard the after show with Ellen and this. I said like, "Dude, come on, calm down. What the hell?" And I don't know. I just let it slide. I say, I don't care, man. If you guys are attacking me, something right I'm doing. It's not because I'm doing something wrong, because if I was nobody, it's like wrestling. If a wrestler gets cheered up, like, yeah, he's doing something right. If he get booed, boo, big time, he's doing something right. And if he got no reaction, then he's nothing. So I'm getting a reaction somehow. So I'm doing something right, and I'm gonna continue doing it. That's pretty much it.
Right, same applies to Miles. Miles is doing something right. As much as he pisses us all off, it doesn't change the fact that he's out there giving us something to debunk. giving us something to highlight the fact that they ignore perspective. So the same applies to people that we, criticise or critique. We wouldn't be critiquing them if they weren't out doing something that warranted our attention, and the same applies to you. If you were an uninteresting flat Earth YouTuber telling your story of how you found out Earth is flat from Math Powerland, and now your whole world's changed and it's all philosophical. Yeah, bollocks. Right? That's not going to get anybody's attention. No offense to all the people who make those sorts of vlogs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true that. I agree.
You've got to not just poke the bear. You've got to take a big fat shit in its cornflakes.
Yeah, definitely. That's why Ranty needs to. He's learning now, but if he wants to get attention and his videos getting on the radar, he's got to throw some stones.
He's getting it. I mean, pretty much. I say 99% of the ballers of the big names out there, I call them big names. They know Ranty, and they always try to use his videos as a ball proof. It's ridiculous, but he's he's doing his part. They know him. They recognize him.
Bonkers what he was telling us about getting chased by that Fiesta. I still can't get over that.
Nathan, did you watch the Cavendish dissection in yesterday's hangout afterwards?
What,
when we went through Cavendish's paper?
Oh, you mean the after show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have rewatched that. As it happens.
It's pretty good, that bit, isn't it?
It is.
Jose, do you know what the value of the... Do you know when we say, how do you distinguish the gravity against the density? Well, whatever value you put on that element of gravity, right, that's supposed to be in addition to the density. Do you know what Cavendish valued that value of gravity to actually be numerically? Jose?
What was that? Sorry,
In the Cavendish experiment, Henry Cavendish put a value on what part of the density would show as gravity. He numerically quantified it. Do you know what the value? Like if half of it's gravity and half of it's density, they're looking for the half that's to do with gravity. Do you know what the value for the gravity that he was trying to find was?
I'm not sure. Is that like a 1 out of 100? I'm not sure.
Keep going. Let's play guess the number. So it's like
0.05, half 0.5.
No, so we'll start with 1 in 100, and I'll say it's a bigger number than 100. So let's go with 1 in 1,000, and I'll say it's a bigger number than 1,000.
Oh shit! 1 in 5,000.
It's bigger than that.
1 in a half of a million, pretty much.
It's bigger than that.
Holy cow! Really? Is that the odds?
It's
1 in a million.
It's 1/50 millionth of the mass of the object that he's trying to observe.
1/50 millionth.
50
Really?
millionths.
50,000,000.
That's what he claims is the gravitational pull and it's 1/50 millionth of the mass of the object in question. So basically, if he's got two objects of mass, let's just say one's a 3 kilogram bowling ball, you've got 1/50 millionth of the mass of the 3 kilogram bowling ball that is to do with gravity, and they're all churning on about it as though it proves it. How are you gonna manipulate
that for real? I call that bullshit, man. Like big time. So it's nothing. Gravity is nothing then.
I'll show you. So this is Henry Cavendish's actual paper, right? And it states this experiment was to determine the density of the Earth, not to prove gravity, to determine the density of the Earth.
It's at
the bottom of page 2, it states this rather interesting phrase. As the force which the balls are attracted by these weights is excessively minute, not more than 1/50 millionth of their weight, it is plain that a very minute disturbance force will be sufficient to destroy the success of the experiment. And from the following experiments, it will appear that the disturbing force most difficult to guard against is that arising from variations of heat and cold. It doesn't mention electromagnetism. It doesn't mention anything to do with drafts or anything to do with his own mass influence in the experiment. But the point is, it's 1/50 millionth of the mass of the object. And this is what them morons tell us, that gravity is that they can feel it. Like, Mark Doxey says that he can feel gravity.
And they say they can isolate it with that number. It's impossible to isolate for doing any kind of experimental test.
What's interesting is where he gets the value of 50 million from. Why is it not 100 million or 25 million? Why 50 million? Where does that randomly plucked from bullshit nonsense? Where does it come from?
Oh, it won't be plucked from random nonsense. I mean, it is random nonsense, but I mean, it won't be just a random number.
Yeah, but he says it's not more than 50 million. Well, why is it 50 million? Why is it not 22 million or 74 million? Why is it 50?
Well, you could
ask it's a nice round number.
Well, you've got two choices. You can either ask a globe head, and he'll give you the answer as though it's some sort of proof of Cavendish's experiment, or you can dig out where that nonsense originates from.
I don't think this. Well, going back this time length, I don't think we're likely to find something that he originated his formulated his opinion on from 1798. God only knows where he got that information from. This 50
how about somebody created a mathematical equation, an axiom, and he started playing with numbers when he added the 50 million as one of those little missing links in the equation. It worked somehow in the math, and they say, all right, this is the number what we need, and maybe they throw it there. So they probably created a math construct, and then they threw it as a reality, I mean, possibly.
It's nonsense. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I've always wondered what part of, when they've got these masses like a helium balloon or whatever, or a rock that's falling down through the air or whatever, I've always wondered what proportion of that rock falling is down to gravity compared to the bit that's down to just its own density displacing the air around it. And when I found out it was 50 million to 1, I just thought, you fucking muppets.
Get better odds on the lottery. Better odds of getting struck by lightning.
No, not quite technically, is it? The odds of winning isn't the odds of winning the lottery. Oh, actually, I think it is 50 million to 1.
I think so.
Odds of.
I don't think it matters. It's just an absolutely exponentially.
Yeah, it's 45 million. You have more chance of winning the lottery than you do winning detecting gravity. That's what we need to cite, Nathan.
No. You've got to be careful. These sorts of bear traps are there so that you can say a sentence like that. Because, well, while it's the remotest chance, they might claim, well, so what? It's a very slim, limited chance because it's a very difficult test to set up. But, we are getting within that accuracy with this experiment, therefore proving gravity. It's like, no, It's not an experiment. It's still all the same shit that debunks it. Forget about the mathematics. Who cares?
Yeah, but,
it's not an experiment.
The problem is that this quantifies the remoteness of what they're claiming is true.
So
it's another avenue to debunk it. I see what you're saying, but I don't think that pointing that out is an interesting folly, but it's not going to win you any prizes if you try to use it to debunk it.
No, but what we can do is we can twist it and laugh at them with it, because we can literally say you've got more chance of detecting. You've got more chance of winning the lottery than you have of detecting that gravitational thing that you claim that is what Cavendish proves. And then they'll say, no, you don't. And then all you got to do is pull that up and show that you've got more chance. And everyone knows that fuck all, no one really wins the lottery. I mean, yeah, you do get people that win it, but that don't make it realistically probable that you're ever going to win it. 45 million times you've got to put the lottery on to win it once.
That's not how it works.
And that means that Sly Spartane got it right the first time he tried this test.
Yeah, and Miles the Liar Davis got it right as well. So the two luckiest people in the whole wide world, right?
You could still play the lottery 45,057,447 times and still lose. That's not how statistics work. Each ticket has got a 45 million to 1 chance. So that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that if you buy 45 million tickets that you suddenly reduce your odds to 1 in 1. You don't.
Correct.
Each ticket's still got a 1 in 45 million chance of winning.
Yeah. I agree. But my point is that if we can put this, if we can laugh at these morons each time Cavendish comes up, now that we know that he attributed it to 50 million to 1, we can say literally you've got more chance of winning the lottery than detecting this little gravitational thing that he claims is there but can't manipulate and claims that you guys claim he proves it. We can literally laugh at them with it, Nathan, because even though they can claim it is technically possible, we can say, yeah, and it's about as remote as winning the lottery, dickhead. And we can just laugh at them for it because it is laughable. We should be laughing at them on it.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I just
if it was 25%, I just
don't want it to sidestep the. It's not an experiment. It's not science. It doesn't prove anything in the first instance. You know, the maths is what they want us to concentrate on.
Well,
what's up, Eric?
Hey, Eric.
I don't know. This is where we have that perception where you say on the one hand, well, let's not beg the question or whatever. On the other hand, I like to go into it and just see where it falls apart.
Sure, but I'm just.
And it's like, which one do you want to do? Do you want to stop it before it starts, or do you want to kill them when it does start? And we can do it either way.
Well, exactly, we can do it either way, but I just never ever want to lose focus of the initial foible or error.
So in that case, then you become. This is like good cop, bad cop. I'll do the begging the question bit, and we go into it, and then you at the end, once I've finished the point and laughed at them about the 50 million to 1, you can then say to the audience, and let's not forget, this is assuming, of course, that we allow them to blah blah blah. Right. It all stops right at the very beginning.
Sure. In other words, point out that it isn't actually science.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chocolate saying in the house.
Good morning, fellas.
Are we in the house?
Chocolate.
Joselito.
Time to go, Nathan.
Yep.
Let's get it started. What's up, Riley?
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Chocolate Sane, Arwin, Eric, Jose, and Sleeping Warrior. Good to have you all.
Woo!
Morning.
Good afternoon.
Liverpool
Glad to be in this historical episode today.
So what, sorry?
Really?
I'm glad to be here and being part of this historical episode, Reification Day. Boom.
Ah, yes, indeed. I mean, I doubt very much that Rumpus will join. You know, we'll just get an excuse on the grapevine. But just so the audience is aware, a week ago, we explained to Rumpus that he had been given permission to beg the question, assume a radius to Earth, and present his reification fallacy, a model that details Anthony's observation whilst lay on the beach at St. Bees, filming the north end of the Isle of Man. So, that's what the countdown was about. Where the hell is it? Time's up. Let's see this reification fallacy put into effect. Also, Sean Hufford, lying sack of shit that he is, claimed that Anthony was listening to a hangout when in fact, as per the recording that we played at nausea, Sean, you're wrong. What was actually occurring was Soundly was feeding GeoStreamer with information through his headset, and that bled through the microphone at a given frequency, eliminating any possibility that it could have been Anthony listening to a hangout which you claimed you would produce and show us the hangout with those exact words being said. Go back to that definition he cites too, which is clearly an instruction to GeoStreamer as per the recording of GeoStreamer being fed by Soundly. So Sean Hufford, Where's your proof of your claim or your retraction for your lies and nonsense? Last but not least, we have Sly Sparkane, who was challenged to actually address Ranty's observation of the Isle of Men, and instead he chose to defy all of his other Globey friends and say that there was nothing to see here, it's all perfectly normal, contrary to what everyone else is saying. Strange though that may be, he didn't actually address the observation, instead chose to claim that I was lying about it. Funny, but failure. So, Sly, Rumpus, Sean, time's up.
So basically, you're all a bunch of liars, deceivers, bullshitters, and basically charlatans is probably the best description. It's embarrassing to be a baller when you've got people like these on your side who propagate and lie and tell mistruths about everything to do with the belief system that you guys all have. And we're here just to expose these liars to be the liars that they actually are. So Sean Hufford, you are a liar. You deceived people by telling people that I'd fouled, and I hadn't. The Rumpus, you're a liar. You deceived people by telling people that Lite does all sorts of bendy nonsense that you can't even model, but even if you did model, is a reification fallacy, because we all know that Lite travels in straight lines. You're all a bunch of idiots. Badly.
Yeah, Sly Sparkane projecting his lies onto us. Just failures, liars, charlatans, cheats, frauds, and everybody who's a fan of these particular individuals. You are the deceived, which is laughable.
The likes of Ron Burgundy and co. Anyway, on a different note, are we going to go through housekeeping?
Yeah, let's rattle our way through it. Let's see how quickly we can get this pegged. Any signs of curvature?
No.
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 Any signs of axial rotation?
No.
No.
Stationary.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
There is no
No.
distance to the sun.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
No.
Only aberrations.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No.
Was that a yes? Did I hear a yes?
Definitely.
Go on, Eric.
No, that was a
Definitely not.
Oh, definitely not. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container for all those people who believe in the vacuum of space?
Never. Not even in theory.
And yet, still waiting.
Not even in their presupposing begging the question theory.
Speaking of begging the question, any evidence of the R value? Earth radius, gentlemen.
No.
No.
No?
No.
Very muff. Right, let's move on. What was it you were going to highlight, Anthony?
Do you want to share my screen?
Man.
The guy that was on yesterday, the self-proclaimed master's student in physics, that we don't necessarily think is probably not true. We think it's probably not true, rather.
Sebastian.
I suspected it was a guy called Hector, and I contacted him, and I had I asked him point blank, was it him? And he says it wasn't, but the dialect, the reflections, the inflections in his voice, the accent, it did sound like him very suspiciously, and he admitted it sounded a lot like him, but he said, nah, it wasn't me. But I got involved in a back and a forth with him over the claim of Cavendish with regards to what the ballers tell us that the Cavendish experiment proves. And these are the 4 points that I want to go through just for the benefit of the audience. This is another guy that's who just so happens to be a master's in physics student in Germany as well. I mean, it's almost like there's two Foucaults in France almost. But anyway, these are his counters for the Cavendish experiment. And basically, when I said to him my points, these are his response points, right? So I've said the points that we had in the hangout yesterday, basically that you can't manipulate the independent variable to prove that it's the cause, therefore it falls outside of gravity, plus a few other bits and pieces. But let's just go through these and we'll just laugh at the stupid, nonsensical nonsense of this guy. So we've got Hector's first point. He claims that gravity is not a variable. It is a phenomenon. You can't affect the phenomenon, only the variables associated with it. And he will not accept, when I say to counter this, he will not accept that because you can't manipulate your gravity, your independent variable, It's not proving gravity. It falls outside of science. It's
Mind if I
not
pop up?
proving the
Sorry to
thing that you
interrupt.
need to adjust.
Sorry to interrupt. So he's saying it's a phenomena. So he's saying gravity is the dependent variable?
Well, he's saying it's a phenomena. So you start off with the observe the phenomena, right? And he's going to say that gravity is the phenomena.
So
You
where do you
can't
observe
affect
this?
the phenomena.
So where's that then? Where do you observe it?
Well, rocks falling up when you let go of a rock, right? Dumbass. Come on, Nathan. You
that's
let
a
go of a
rock
rock
falling.
and it'll fall. Gravity.
Well, no, but that's a rock falling. I mean, where do we observe specifically gravity? And what are you going to vary and manipulate to cause gravity?
Well, I always ask myself the question, well, how much of the rock falling out of, once you let go of the rock and it starts to move, how much of that movement is actually down to the fact, down to this claim of gravity compared to the amount that is just the density of the rock in the air it sits in?
Sure,
What
but,
is it?
But if he's saying that the phenomena is gravity, saying a rock falling, well, if they want to say that the cause of it falling down is gravity, then that makes your phenomena a rock falling. Well, okay, never going to be in a position to get an independent variable to establish why a rock or an apple falls. That's not possible. You're not going to be able to isolate it down to one variable to cause that. But ultimately speaking, he's claiming that the phenomena is gravity.
Yeah. That would be the DV, right? The dependent variable.
Yeah, the thing that you observe in nature. So, right,
Yeah.
okay, tell me where I can go and observe gravity.
I attacked it on the basis that, well, if gravity is not your variable, right, you show me anywhere that you can qualify the scientific method with
sorry,
something that's not your IV.
Sorry, sorry to keep interrupting. So he's saying it's not variable.
Gravity is not a variable. In this context, he means it's not a variable that you can adjust or manipulate.
But you're trying to cause the effect. So if the effect is constant, then it's not an effect.
Correct. That was my main argument against him yesterday. I'll bring this up on screen. He won't accept this. He literally ignores it. He started bombing his text with in response. This is from the University of Northern Carolina, and it clearly states independent variables and dependent. He said, this is what it says: in an experiment, the independent variable is the variable that is varied or manipulated by the researcher, and the dependent variable is the response that is measured. An independent variable is the presumed cause, whereas the dependent variable is the presumed effect. And I just kept citing that back to him, and he refuses to address it. Not address it. He counters it by reciting his position, but he's not addressing the point that I'm pointing out to him. So if gravity is not your variable, then that's not your cause. And he won't accept it. He still thinks that Cavendish proves gravity. And I say no.
Well, no, it's not an experiment.
No.
You have an independent and dependent variable relationship that establishes a cause and effect. And they continually, this guy the same, will substitute what is the cause and what is the effect, what they are manipulating and what they are experiencing. So it's a constant switcheroo mess of nonsense that's only there to justify a mathematical formula. It's a complete sideshow. It's a circus trick that justifies a mathematical formula, a mathematical hypothesis, and not the variation of an independent variable to establish the cause of an effect. That would be science. This is not that.
Well, look at what he puts for his second. We didn't get to his second point because we couldn't get off his first point. But look at his second point. What the Cavendish experiment proves precisely is Newton's law of gravity, a linear equation that describes an attractive force between objects, directly proportional to the masses of the object and the inverse square of the distance between the said objects. All right, so what I'm going to do here is just to show some people what is literally hilarious, right? So we've got, this is Henry Cavendish's actual experiment paper, right? He wrote it in 1789. You can research it by, it's available. You can find it. And what it says at the opening line, before you go anywhere else, Henry Cavendish's experiment was to determine the density of the Earth. So if we go back to what he says, Henry Cavendish's experiment proves precisely is Newton's law of gravity, a linear equation that describes an attractive force between objects. Well, if it's determining the density of the Earth, that doesn't sound remotely similar to what he's describing. And I was going to correct him on this, but I didn't get to this point. But the second part of this is interesting. He says, it's directly proportional to the masses of the object. Okay, so what's the proportion that Henry Cavendish's experiment is to do with the gravity that this guy's citing? Anybody want to play a game of guess what number it is? I mean, what I mean is it 50-50?
Let's do it for the chat. We did this before the show started, so let's do it for the chat, right? So if you've got a... No, you phrase it, but phrase it for the chat. I don't want to steal your thunder, Anthony.
So I always say to people, how do you distinguish the gravity from the density of the rock that's falling through the air? Is it like 50-50 with the gravity? Is it 10% gravity, 90% the density? Or is it 1% gravity and 99% gravity density? Where is the relationship between this quantification that he's claiming that Newton proves in his experiment that does nothing to do with gravity, but everything to do with the density of the Earth? So like, we'll say, is it 1 in 10? Is it like 10%? 1 in 50? Is it 50%? Is it 1 in 1,000? What's the relationship between the citations? So what we'll do is we'll put it out to the audience and give us a number that you think that the gravity represents, and we'll call it 1 in 10 would be 10%. 1 in 10 million, whatever number you think it might be that represents the element of gravity in the Cavendish experiments that these morons think that he proved. So, what numbers can we see?
You're not trying to figure out that it is nonsense. We already are under the understanding this is nonsense. So to say 0 out of 10, no, you're just guessing what he said it was. So we got first guess from Ranty Flat Earth, 1 in 77 billion. Rune Thornson's 1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000.
1 in 50.
That's a good shout.
Oliver, keep them coming. 1 in 9. Zinder.
1 in 9 for Zinder. Well, I always think it's less than 1%.
1 in 50. Globe Philosophy. Come on, keep the guesses coming. Let's see what else we've got. No one's anywhere near close.
I always think anything less than 5% is not worth talking about. But in this instance, I would say 1%. So I would say 1 in 100. That would be my guess.
Ranty's guess, 1 in 100. 1 in 77 billion isn't anywhere close, Ranty. 1 in 5, says Mark Taylor. 1 in 50, says Oliver. 0.01.
So Mark Taylor thinks that 20% of the cause of the rock falling through the air is attributed to gravity, right? 20%. So we'll compare what Mark says as the landmark. 20% for what Mark thinks, 1 in 5.
1 in
Let's
10,
see what
1
it
in
actually
100,
was.
1 in 666.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
A couple more guesses, just a few more people. Throw it out there. What is the proportion that he's measuring of gravity? 0.000125, says the Adam Meakin.
0.0000125. That's a better guess.
Not bad.
Seems a bit slim though.
1,000. We have that already. Any more for any more? Give it 10 more seconds. 1 in 1,000. David Reed.
1 in 1,000.
How about here, the guys in chat? I say 1 out of 100. That was my first guess earlier, and I stand by it.
Yeah, that would be 1%, wouldn't it? So 1 in 100 is 1%. That's what I would expect gravity to be.
What do you guys think? What do you think, Eric, Arwin?
1 in 15,000. Ranty Flat Earth. Okay, that's much more close, Ranty. Okay,
1 in 15,000. Fair enough. So
let's
that's
put
a reasonable.
Misery, right? So let's show them. 1 in 1980, says Andres.
I tell you what, should we put it in the context of winning the lottery? What would you say is more likely? Let's see the chances. Chances of winning the lottery. Let's see what the chances of winning the lottery are. 1 in 45 million. Let's play higher or lower. Does anybody think that you are more likely to win the lottery than you are to detect gravity in the Cavendish experiment? Or do we think that it's less likely? So basically, if it's greater than 45 million to 1.
I see. So the game is it higher or lower than what? 45 million?
45
1 in 45.
million.
Okay, is it higher or lower than 1 in 45 million?
Yeah, that's
Ranty
what we need to do. So
higher.
everybody place your bets in chat now. Is the value for the Cavendish experiment for the quantification of the gravity that you morons think that you proved, is the value greater than 45 million or less than?
Got higher.
Infinitely
Cleary, Flat
greater,
Earth,
because
John,
the chances
Trouble,
are
Globe
simply
Philosophy.
0.
They're all going higher. Everyone thinks higher.
Let's not forget that 1 in 100 is 1%, right? So if we're going to be talking in the scale of 1 in 1 million,
higher? They all think higher.
It becomes ridiculous, right?
Shout out to Rumpus. He said the panel is 100% moronic.
So,
excellent answer. Good guess, Rumpus.
So let's see what Cavendish himself quantified the amount of gravity that he was apparently proving in his experiment. Are you ready, guys?
Drum roll.
It's like taking the clothes off in a strip, isn't it? So The force which the balls are attracted by these weights is excessively minute, not more than 1 in 50 million. So you literally have more chance of winning the lottery than you have of successfully detecting gravity in the Cavendish experiment, if that's what he was trying to prove in the first place.
Before
So
anybody in the comments says that it's a false equivocation,
compared to winning
care.
the lottery at 1 in 45 million.
So anybody in the comments who says it's a false equivalency,
You lot are
we don't
morons,
care.
and you lot think it proves gravity, right? What's the chances of you actually being able to isolate all the other variables, right? And assuming that you were able to manipulate gravity in the first place, play that manipulation to the 1 in 45 million to win the lottery, but he claims that it's 1 in 50 million to demonstrate this cause of gravity. And I call that complete and utter nonsense, you morons.
That's one of the saddest things I've ever heard.
Hey, Zinder.
To be honest.
Hey,
Zinder, you don't think the Cavendish experiment proved gravity, do you?
I don't think so, no.
Thank God for that. I'm glad we didn't have to go through that again. Do you realise that it was 1 in 50 million for the apportionment of gravity in his experiment, right?
How much again? Sorry.
1 in 50 million. So 1 in 100 is 1%. So 1 in 50 million, that's one of those silly, crazy numbers that I can't even quantify in my head. But basically, it's 1 in 50 millionth of the weight of the mass that you're talking about. So these weights is excessively minute, not more than 1/50 millionth of the weight. So if you got a 3 kilogram ball and you divide that equally into 50 million little slices, that little tiny bit of mass is what he claims, or what the ballers claim, is what the value for the gravitation is. And they all think that he proved it with balls in a shed. I say no.
So like 1/50 millionth compared to Earth's gravity, or
compared
to the mass of the object, the weight of the object.
Okay, yeah.
Now, what is interesting?
This is what they cite for the proof of gravity.
Yeah,
I mean, this is nonsensical.
This is ridiculous. But let's not forget that mass is not a force and weight is a force, according to Rumpus. And obviously, the words that he uses here is weight. Now, in mathematics, weight's got that little g attached to it because it's a force. Now, really, it should be the word mass in this instance, right? Because mass is not a force. So it should be referencing the mass of the object. But he clearly says weight. Now, weight, according into mathematics, includes that little g. But the little g value it's 1/50 millionth. And I say that is no way, in any sense of the word of the imagination, that we could ever. You're never going to be able to detect that, ever. So anyone that thinks that gravity was proved by Cavendish, whatever nonsense, if you ever get this far into the begging the question nonsense.
Hold on, we do have an objection from the chat. So John Watson says, but Cavendish did have very sensitive instrumentation back in 1798 in his shed.
Do you reckon? I mean, it must be extremely sensitive to pick up 1/50 millionth to 1, right? I'm going to say John Watson. No. If there's anybody that can demonstrate a variation of 1/50 millionth,
there's no scales that can do that.
No, I agree.
Even today.
Yeah,
while they are technically there, it's like super heavy technical stuff with vacuum. It's very complex technology that wasn't around during Cavendish.
And I wouldn't even say it's around now. I don't think that there's any set of scales anywhere that could do this to what 6, 7, 8, 9 decimal places, right? But then fluctuate between 1 and 2. I don't think there's any set of scales that could do that. And even if there was, how would you calibrate it to prove that it's accurate and reliable? It's utter garbage. Anyway, so that was to do with the. So if anybody ever says to you, right, if you're a flat earther, if anybody ever claims Cavendish, just remember that it was a 1 in 50 millionth of the mass of the object that they were trying to measure, and then spit that back in the face and laugh at them and remind them that you've got more chance of actually winning the lottery. You morons. Anyway,
I got a quick shout out here to Colombia. Colombia has 49 point something million people. So if we gather every single person in Colombia, then we pull one person out. That's kind of just to put it in context. You know, are you going to be able to measure that one person versus 49 million point something?
It's the equivalent of having go to the register of every single person that's registered in that. Do you say in that state or in that town or whatever?
In the whole Colombia, in that
okay,
state,
so
whatever.
In the whole of Colombia, you get every single person's name in a hat, and then you pull out one person's name, walk out onto the street, grab the first person that you see, and that is that person on that name out of a hat.
Yes.
With 40 million people in it.
So basically, you've got more chance of finding gravity in the Cavendish experiment than you have randomly of finding the one person in the whole of England that's got a population of 54.79 million. You've got more chance of detecting the gravity than you have randomly of finding that one person that you need to kill in this argument somehow. That one person, 50 million people in the whole country, and you've got that.
Same with cars. I think there's about 50 million registered cars in the UK. So it's like going to the DVLA registration, looking up one random number plate, taking it, scribbling it down, and then walking outside and seeing that car drive past.
Yeah, that's it. It's nonsense. It's utter garbage. Anyway, let's go back to Hector's other points because they're worthy of comment. So his third point is the scaling factor of that attractive force, which, let's remind people, 1 in 50 million is a constant. Well, it's not. It's relative to its mass, or it's relative to its weight, according to his paper. So it's not a constant either, meaning that the variable is not altered. That's not true. It is a constant. It doesn't change. If it were changing, that would disprove Newton's law of gravity. Well, it changes relative to the weight. So, I mean, I'll just show it for completeness. Hector doesn't have this right. He doesn't understand this at all. He says the force which the balls are attracted by these weights is excessively minute, not more than 50 million to 1 of their weight. So as the weight goes up, that force, that 50 million to 1, that proportionately increases with the weight. So when Hector says this point here, it is a constant and doesn't change, that's not true, is it, Hector? But we didn't get this far, but that's what he's saying. And finally, by way of completion, number 4, what is measured is the relation between the distance of the objects and the force. Those are the two non-constant variables. Well, what you should be measuring is your independent variable by fluctuating it and then measuring the effect of it. That's what you should be doing, but that's not what we're actually doing, is it? No. The independent variable is the distance influenced by moving one of the pairs of weights. That would be your independent variable. And the dependent variable is the force. Oh, really? What force is that then? Why aren't you manipulating that force to prove it is what you're seeing? Observed through the acceleration of the inner pair of weights is moved through it. It's utter garbage. This guy is a physicist at master's level, and he is talking complete and utter nonsense. And I'd love to know if Rumpus was capable of having an adult conversation. I would love to see what Rumpus thinks about this Cavendish experiment. But we all know that Rumpus can't converse with a 5-year-old. So we've got no chance as adults talking about something complicated like independent variables. So it's a shame because you claim to be a physicist of some kind at degree level, don't you, Rumpus? It's just a pity you can't converse properly with adults.
Thank you for the idea, Mr. John Watson in chat. I'm probably going to go to Walmart later, buy me a Cavendish kit in the toy section and buy me a shed in the flower garden section and then do the experiment later.
Some Fisher-Price Cavendish experiment?
Yeah. Toys R Us.
It seems like it's worth the same thing. Sad.
Shout out to Liverpool Football Club. They just won 4-0. Top of the league. Woo! Nobody better retract it. Woo!
Congratulations to the footy ball players. We're all really concerned about them. Are they okay for cash?
I think they're pretty much sorted.
Okay. We'll cancel the GoFundMe.
Yeah. GoFundMe retracted.
So, hold on. Rumpus is in the chat. This show's about you, Rumpus. There's a gap
yeah,
on
but
the panel.
he's not able to have a conversation, Nathan.
He doesn't have to. He's presenting his reification fallacy that he said would be about a week. Well, we've counted down the days. We're all here in anticipation. Your name is in the show title. Did you lie when you said it would be a week?
Yeah, of course he lied. And let me just point out for the benefit of the audience that I've already got my rebuttal in place. He needs to be able to demonstrate how the light can bend around the shape of the Earth and show this mirage as well as showing how the land is possible to be seen, because we see in the evidence that there is a reflection of the land.
There we go. I haven't finished my website yet. I haven't felt up to finishing it. Oh, really? So that's just bollocks that you told us last week then. Oh, what a shock. Known lie.
No. Were you under the weather? Were you a little sick again, Rumpus?
He's just a liar.
Yeah.
But notice how him and all his cronies all call us the liars. Like Sean Hufford tells everybody that we're liars. Yeah, he's the one that's manipulating evidence to try and amplify the hell out of the background where there's no noise, and he needs there to be noise there. and then completely ignore where the noise actually is, and somehow I'm the liar. I don't think so.
We're not worried, Rumpus. We've already figured out how the magic trick works. This was your last opportunity to do it. Now we don't give a toss. Your model will exclude perspective. It will put us into a side elevation when doing the mathematics for what is and isn't hidden, when you use the absolute sizes of any target in the distance. So we already know how your magic trick works. We're not interested in your model. The only reason you're not here is because you know damn well that we will absolutely hand you your ass on a plate when you present your reification fallacy, even being allowed to beg the question and assume, you're a pathetic little man.
Very
The most sensible thing to do, Rumpus, is keep well away. Very sensible.
Yeah. Take the advice of the ballers, Rumpus. Don't join the panel because you make them look bad. Problem we've then got is that there's nobody else that wants to come in to get their ass tanned. But we'll deal with that. We'll just tell everybody how flat the earth is and how you guys can't prove anything about what you believe and preach to the people in church.
He has given us a rebuttal. He says, I don't understand perspective. I don't need to. You don't include it. That
it's not us that needs to account for it. Yeah. We don't have to understand it. All we've got to do is point out that it's missing, and you guys need to put it in, and you don't put it in.
Yeah, that's where you get your curve from, Rumpus. By saying that a 10-foot wall is a 10-foot wall on the left-hand side of the page, and it's a 10-foot wall on the right-hand side of the page, and it doesn't change size, because it's a 10-foot wall, right? Well, in these pictures that we're looking at now, this car gets smaller as it goes further away from us. Its angular size decreases, something that you have not only ignored, you have used to convince the world that they live on a sphere, and they do not. We never see the side of our own head when we take these pictures, but that's precisely how you analyse them, so that you can ignore the fact that things get smaller into the distance, put it into a side elevation, and claim that things getting smaller into the distance is actually Earth curve related. It's not. It's got nothing to do with Earth curve and everything to do with perspective. Your magic trick's been ruined. We all know the trick now. Nobody's ever going to let any baller get away with showing us a side elevation. People will ask, sorry, where's the side of my own head in this image now? Like this one now. If we were to analyse what was in this picture, according to the ball mathematics, we would be looking at the side of our own head when we did so, even though it's not in the picture. And as I say, anything that's in this picture, like a car, if we slide it to the right-hand side of the picture, in their non-perspective orthographic side elevation, the car will stay the same size on the right-hand side of the page when it's far away from the observer, and it'll be the same size on the left-hand side of the page, because the size in feet and inches doesn't change according to them. But that little magic trick is where they get their curvature from, because the actual effects that we see are simply down to angular size reduction at distance, perspective. They ignore it, so they can call it Earth curve.
You guys want to see this point hijacked again by a guy named in a special little edition yesterday, Wiggles. He was exposed again on trying to hijack perspective on throwing an orthographic view, and he was destroyed.
Yeah, but to be fair, Wiggles did bring up a really good comparison that he understood, right? He understood his comparison, but he didn't understand how his comparison that he brought up destroyed his own point. He said that if you get a comb, a hair comb, and you look at it side, like you look at it as though it's like going left to right in front of you, orthographically speaking, all the teeth on the comb are all the same size. And then he said, if you turn it 90 degrees and look down the length of it, all the teeth then start to get smaller over distance, right? And we said, well done, that's our point, mate. He's like, yeah, but when you turn it sideways again, he said, it doesn't do it. Like, yeah, that's the point. That's our point, mate. As you get side on and you're looking down the length of somewhere, it gets smaller. But you guys don't account for that in your maths. And he would not realize, or he could not realize, that it's that flip when we're looking at something going away from you that's the important bit. When you look at it orthographically speaking, yeah, it's fine. We understand it. But when you turn it and you look down the length of it, everything gets smaller with distance. And I said to him, Wiggles, what you're saying would only be true if when you turned it, it didn't get smaller with distance. It didn't get any smaller the further away it got from you. Then you wouldn't have to account for perspective. But because it actually does do that, it means that you've got to reduce the apparent size accordingly. And you guys don't account for it. And he still didn't get it. He still thought we were wrong and he was right. And in the end, we lost our temper.
Well, ultimately speaking, he's trying to justify the exclusion of perspective and say why it's not necessary. So he implicitly understands that the calculator does not include perspective. So he gets it. He knows it's not there, and he's happy to admit it. He just goes on to try and justify why removing a very real aspect of reality from pictures, what a camera captures when the shutter opens, he's decided that no, what we need to do is draw a 2D model of that inside profile, because in reality the feet and inches value of things, the absolute sizes of stuff never changes. Well, yeah, it does. The stuff gets smaller as it gets further away from us. Its angular size changes. But when we look at that angular size relationship, it's always being talked about as though it's Earth curve. No, it's not. It's just the angular size relationship between things at distance. That's what's actually occurring.
I reminded myself of Tau Ceti Alpha's gag video. I can't remember what they're called, but full-on retard mode or whatever it is. And in that, he's got me doing my my point where I was moving the float out of the hot tub, moving it further down the length of the table, and showing that when it was at close to the camera, it was about, I think it was about 10 inches. And then when you move it further away, it measures 2.5 inches. And for some reason, he thought that that was worthy of ridicule. But that just shows me that these morons still don't understand it. They still don't understand perspective. And it's like, this is not, it's not me that you should be laughing at here, guys. It's yourself.
Yeah, they don't need to. It's not included in their worldview. They tell us that the world is represented in a side view and totally ignores perspective, and it doesn't. But they say we must draw out what you see on your photo and analyse that. We'll analyse the drawing that we draw of your photo, so we can misrepresent what the world actually is doing. And then when we go back to the photo and look at what is happening, we'll call that Earth curve. Because look, our calculator says it's Earth curve. Yeah? That's what we're going to do. And when we say, well, what about the angular relationship that doesn't get taken into account when you look at it in side view? Oh, well, you don't need to, because you don't need to analyse that in a side view. It's like, but that's not what the picture is. This isn't a picture of my own head. It's a picture that the camera's taken from this position, not 90 degrees adjacent. So, for example, the picture on screen now gives you the exact thing I'm talking about when I say that the actual sizes of things remain the same when you look left to right. So if we have our observer here, left-hand side of the page, and he's looking at this mountain in this depiction is the same exact size as this mountain. Right? Wrong. From the vantage point of the person actually looking out into the distance, this mountain's long gone, not to Earth curve, but to perspective. It's got so small you can't see it anymore. But as it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, they say that the Earth is blocking your view of it. Well, no. They haven't accounted for the fact that this is not this size from the observer's point of view. But they'll put it in this side profile where this mountain is the same as this mountain, is the same as this mountain, even though in reality they're getting visually smaller in the photograph that you're actually looking at. That's called, have a guess, perspective. Angular size reduction at distance. But they don't ignore, they just completely ignore it. And they say, well, no, this mountain, because it looks less, that's because it's behind Earth curve. Bollocks. No, it's not. That's just a misrepresentation of what the world's doing. They'll draw this view to tell you what you see in a photograph.
What I've been doing in the last, 30 seconds, I've been spamming the chat with a phrase. It says, Paris, yellow vest protest continues despite government scrapping fuel price hike. If you copy that and paste that into YouTube, you'll see a live link that's to do with Paris. And I know this is not to do with the flat earth or the debate, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Paris has backed down over these so-called fuel price hikes. But for some reason, all of the Parisians are all still violently fighting against the authorities. Now, that must tell you that it's not to do with the fuel price hikes.
No, that's not why they did it. They're continuing because Macron basically only promised to postpone it. And they just say, no, it's just never going to happen.
Well,
we're not going to be toned down.
According to the news, they've changed their position and said that they are not going to be putting the price up. However, the people
temporarily.
It's not what the say is at the minute.
Yeah, I actually dug into it. So yeah, that's why they're still rioting.
All I'm telling you is what the news is saying. I'm not.
Yeah, but that news is very superficial. I look at
it does say they've scrapped it. It doesn't say that they've protested it. But anyway, my point is that isn't this the point that they're all supposed to be fighting over? Why would they be carrying on fighting if they've actually scrapped it? Now, that is the claim by the news at the minute, that it was scrapped, but they still seem to be fighting. So perhaps it might not actually be about fuel protesting at all.
Yeah, nice conspiracy theory. I just gave you a direct explanation as to why they're still protesting.
But they've scrapped it
It's a
out.
conspiracy.
No, then it's not. It's not true.
They've scrapped
That's
it.
your
It's
belief,
just been
Arwin.
postponed.
That's your.
Arwin,
Not
it's
scrapped.
It is scrapped.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
postponed.
But
We have a guy out there by
whether
the
they
name of
scrapped it or not,
Gattaca.
my point is that they still seem to be fighting, but they've conceded the point that the news.
Yeah, because you're not listening. You're bullheaded and you're just doubling down almost like a glober here.
Did I hear
just
physics?
said
Did
to
you got an opinion
no,
on
they
it?
didn't scrap it. They're postponing it.
Arwin, listen.
You believe fake
arguing.
news, dude.
I'm not arguing whether they've scrapped it or not. You are. I'm not.
No, you are basing your theory on the base assumption that they did scrap it. And then suddenly it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, because you're overlooking the fact that they do have a reason to keep
Riley,
on going.
what do you think the back of the story
You're being an
is?
idiot.
I'm not.
Hold on,
arguing.
Arwin. I want to hear physics. He got an opinion on this subject.
All right. So basically, I mean, we can hear, we know exactly what the front of the story is, and obviously we're postulating what the back of the story. What I can tell you is we do have a guy on the boots that's out there and has been on the panel before. His name is Gattaca, and Gatha is already is already out there. So hopefully he can get back to us in a sense what's going out there and really what the news is. But it may not be gases or taxes. It could be more other forms of possibility of a possibility. Here's the point, which is possibility of the pedophilia, and they're kind of mad about that, and it is political.
Correct.
As being political, the actual reflection is that we have stormtroopers out there, and in a sense, now are they going to actually back up this particular argument? So, since I spoke with Gattaca and he's out there, my intentions to Gattaca is obviously this staging event is already been pre-planned already a long time ago, and they're active with it. They know how to treat it, and they know how to actually resolve it. Now, the point of the matter is, in this particular body politics, which is the people, is that really at this stage, they really need to get together with the family and the people that's involved in the government, because there's a whole mass of people in there, and they may have a consensus to a point where something will be heard. And that it was my message to Gattaca, and hopefully there could be some kind of meanings of the mind in there rather than to actually Molotov cocktails and that. But then he came back with, there are going to be motivated people out there. So therefore, if that's the case, accept those types of people out there, but predominantly in a sense, we should have the meetings of the mind and actually discuss this matter in a form of like down to, what are we choosing and why are we out here now? So it would be a large body politics to be in one place, and that's what the powers to be may be afraid of, because it may be that consensus that may change on one part, but it could be very impressionable in other areas. So that's my impression.
Yeah, that is my point. My point's not that they're arguing whether it's been scrapped or not. My point is that what we're being told is what they're fighting about. It doesn't appear to be what they're fighting about.
Hey, Apollo.
Hey, Nathan. So, yesterday or 2 days ago, I'm not sure, we talked some stuff about observations. So right now I'm just testing out some different lenses with my Nikon D610 and my Mamiya RB67, not for observation, but just to test out if everything is functional. Just right here. So I came on to ask what kind of observations, what should I be looking at, and how should I record it, and how should I set up all the different cameras, and how do I need to publish the results?
I want to know what kind of paper round you've got to have a £1,000 camera body. That's a lovely camera.
Well, these the price of a small car back in the day, but right now you can get one with a lens for about, I would say, $500.
A lot of money for a toy.
But it is a very professional toy. This is a fully mechanical camera. There are no batteries in it, so it will go.
You sound like me talking to my wife about a new piece of hi-fi equipment. But I'm not, discrediting what you say. I'm sure that's the case.
So this will last for, generations if it is well kept. This one, will be around in 20 years. I don't know. It's a digital camera, Lots of things to go wrong. And this is one of the medium format lenses. Not one of these, but another one adapted. Right here you can see the adapter. So yeah, I'm just coming on to ask how I should proceed with the observations.
You need something that's far enough away that it's not possible to see it with the eye, and therefore you could capture that something, whatever it may be, beyond the diffraction limit of, say, an iPhone, and then you just step up to something with a bigger aperture and see if you can capture it at the same, I don't know what the focal length of an iPhone is, sorry, off the top of my head, but you try and capture it at a similar focal length, but with a bigger aperture. See how you get on, because I have absolutely no idea how this will go. All I know is the theory, the maths. That said, the Rayleigh criterion's taught to, current students, so I don't see any reason to doubt it, but it'd be nice to see it in actual practical application. There may actually be a demonstration of this already. I've never searched for it on YouTube, but there may very well be a practical demonstration of the diffraction limit. I mean, it applies to everything, including microscopes, so surely somebody somewhere's actually shown a practical demonstration of the Rayleigh criterion in action, but I've never looked.
Okay. And what else? And I guess it should be something flat, so you start to see it go down and disappear from the bottom up or something. I think you made.
I wouldn't. Not necessarily. I mean, the diffraction limit applies to absolutely everything. So long as the thing you're looking at is too small to see at a given distance, if you can bring it back with a larger aperture, in other words, the diffraction limit has been decreased by virtue of having a bigger hole, then you'll basically show that diffraction limit in action. But you don't need to do it necessarily against a tight angle or anything. It's just finding something that's literally too small to see with your own eye.
I can do that. There is an Iceland. There is a small island not far from here, where you can look out into where you have a landscape, so you can see far out into the distance. So
right. So with two photographs, you could compare the detail and see if there are things that are beyond the diffraction limit of one camera, but not beyond the diffraction limit of another with a bigger aperture.
Exactly. I can do that.
You don't have to use something flat. If you can find curvature, take a picture of that.
Oh yeah,
no one else has found it yet.
Absolutely, Warren. Don't don't stop looking for curve.
This is the Lite box.
Yeah, it's a monster. It's a big old camera, isn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a Snowbox Brownie, but it's still big.
Warren.
Yes?
Don't answer with a number, but do you remember what value the Cavendish experiment was for how much gravity is affected? What proportion of gravity is the claim by Cavendish himself? Don't say the number.
Yeah.
You do, right. So, Apollo.
Yeah.
You believe that? Do you believe the Cavendish experiment shows gravity?
I don't know. I've heard some people say, you know, like Nathan, that the percentage is too small and it doesn't actually prove a cause something relationship. So the experiment is kind of useless.
Do you know what value the gravity that it was claimed by ballers that Cavendish measured or was measuring was?
No idea.
It's 50 million to 1 based on the weight of the object, not the mass, the weight of the object, which Rumpus will correctly tell you. Weight is a force, mass is not. Well, according to Cavendish himself, it was 1/50 millionth of the weight of the object in question. That is what is attributed to be the gravitational force of attraction.
Shout out to Globe Philosophy for the super chat. Thank you very much indeed. This is a Liverpool supporter.
Who is?
The person that just super chatted. Globe Philosophy. Philosophy, I should say.
Shout out to Liverpool for winning 4-0.
That's a so you need 50 million grams or something to measure 1 gravity or something.
It's 50 million to 1 of the weight of the mass. So if you've got a 3-kilogram bowling ball that is often used in the Cavendish recreation experiments, then you need to calculate what is 1/50 millionth of 3 kilograms, right? And then you need to accurately measure within 50 million, like within the decimal places that represents 50 million, to make sure that your 3-kilogram ball is actually 3 kilograms and it's not 3 kilogram plus 1/50 millionth. Because if you did, then you'd get a wrong reading, wouldn't you, on your claim? But then you have to then measure that force of gravity and show that it represented 1/50 millionth. Does that not seem a little bit crazy?
Indeed.
Yay! I wonder whether or not people like the Rumpus would concede to that. I don't think Rumpus would concede to that.
So you would need to have a very delicate and climate-controlled setup to make accurate measurements all the time. Otherwise, it will be thrown off by the slightest.
How delicate would you suggest if it was 50 million to 1? Would you say that was ever realistically ever achievable? I wouldn't.
Well, today we can make electronic circuits only the size of a few nanometers. So I guess it is possible to create very delicate equipment like that.
All right, well, let's say it.
Only problem is today we still have people telling us that Cavendish proves gravity.
Yeah, let's just say that they could do it. Do you think that some bloke in his shed with a couple of balls on a torsion bar, do you reckon that he was able to get that level of precision?
No.
No, but people still go around telling people that Cavendish proves gravity, right?
Yeah, but come on, Anthony. Styrofoam wasn't even invented then, so...
Yeah. Shout out to Slice Barkane and Miles the Liar Davis, who repeated it conveniently in their own bedroom.
Shout out Retracted.
Well done, sir.
Retracted again.
Shout out Retracted 10 times. It's embarrassing. I'm glad that Apollo's at least honest enough to accept that the chances of anybody with some bloke in his shed with balls off a torsion bar was ever able to get anything like the level of accuracy necessary to demonstrate gravity when it's 50 million to 1. Guys, he didn't prove gravity. He was trying to measure the density of the Earth.
Just before this show rounds out, Anthony, obviously Rumpus has completely failed miserably, despite the fact that he gave us this deadline for the time that he presented his reification fallacy. Can we just remind the audience of the other two people, Sly being one of them?
I can't remember Sly being singled out, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, he was challenged by Ranty to prove the Isle of Man observation, and rather than that, he just claimed I'd lied about the distance, and then said it was all normal. Said it was perfectly normal. There was nothing here to see. Nothing here to see. It's all good. Exactly as expected. While simultaneously, you've got several of the ballers claiming it's super looming. Amazing, really.
Well, you got Sean Hufford that demanded that it was me that was playing some hangout, and he would prove it by demonstrating the hangout that he claims that I was listening to, and I wasn't listening to a hangout. It was clearly obvious that Soundly was feeding GeoStreamer. But because he was unable to find this hangout, he had to create a distraction. But the point is that he's not able to demonstrate that I was listening to any hangout, and he won't concede the point. He will not concede that he was lying and deceiving people. And of course, that is the claim that he projects onto me, yet he does it himself. So Sean Hufford, you've been called out numerous times. You're not going to get called out anymore because it isn't worth mentioning your name, but just let everybody be aware that Sean's claim of me has yet to be proven, and it's the way it sounds. So Sean Hufford, you failed to prove your case. It wasn't me that was listening to anything. It was GeoStreamer, and everybody can see it. You're a liar, Sean. You deceived people by telling people that I had done some wrong. I had not, and you can't prove your case, but still will not concede your point because you are a disingenuous and intellectually dishonest sack of poo. That deals with Sean. And then we're left with the Rumpus, who's got the longest cold in history of man. Can't get this little thing organised, can you, Rumpus?
Absolutely sad. There's a lot of disappointed globeheads out there that were hoping you would beg the question and reify their fantasy that we all live on a sphere, and you've failed them all, Rumpus. It's pretty pathetic. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show because Rumpus didn't turn up and lied to everybody about him being 7 days to produce this model, then smash the dislike button. But then smash it again. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!